Hello, and welcome to this week's show of Marketing, Branding, and Getting the Sale. I'm here today joined with Stephen and Jess as usual, and we would like to wish you a happy new year. Can you believe it's 2022 already? So let's quickly do some introductions before we dive into our topic for today, New Year's resolutions even, yay or nay. So quickly, let's do some introductions. My name is Una Doyle. I'm a business strategist and coach, and I specialize in working with creative business owners, quite often creative services. And I love to help them to have highly profitable businesses that are fun to run and where they get to do work they're proud of and to be in creative flow. So I can help any business to unlock 50K in 50 minutes. If you want to know how, send me a DM and I'll send you a video showing you. So Jessica, would you like to introduce yourself, please, for people who don't know?
Hi. Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. I wonder how long we can actually be saying that. It's my first week back, so I'll be saying it to everyone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Jess. I help businesses become more profitable so they can grow into that next stage of growth. For a lot of my clients, it's getting into higher end retailers, employing more staff, building more of a team, making the production line bigger and stronger and better. Whatever that is, I help businesses become more profitable to achieve that. I have a 6-step brand loyalty process that I take my clients on to have the brand that helps them get more money out of their efforts. So if you want to know more about that, if you want to know what the 6 steps are, drop me a message or a comment underneath this video and I'll send you a quick short video explaining that. So that's me, Jess.
Thanks, Jess. Over to you, Stephen.
Well, first of all, apart from the Happy New Year to everybody, I feel a bit left out. You've all got videos and I've got nothing. I'll just have to use my winning personality. My name is Stephen Lerman. I run a company called Chameleon BDS, and what I do is I make appointments for those people that don't want to, don't like to, or just don't have the time to do it themselves or the resources, in fact. So I make all the phone calls, update your CRM, and help you get in front of people that you would have otherwise not had the opportunity to get in front of.
Fantastic. Thank you. Right. So let's talk about today's topic, New Year's resolutions, yay or nay. So what's your view, Jess? Do you create New Year's resolutions? And if so, do you stick to them?
No, I'm not a New Year resolution fan. In fact, when we said, when we were looking at topics for these little lives and we were going, what about New Year resolutions? And I was like, oh no, I stay away from New Year resolutions. I'm like, I don't like the idea of them. And I suppose it's for a few reasons, really. Like, one, when I have done them in the past, I've not been able to stick with them and they've just been a bit of a fad, and then I kind of feel bad for it after that. After the first few weeks of January, you're already not sticking with what you set out to stick to. And it puts me down. I kind of go on a bit of a downer. So for a long time, I didn't do any until I started up my own business. And then I looked at how I could do it in different ways. So don't get me wrong, I do set goals. I do set, actionable kind of visions where I want to be, how I want to get there, what do I want to stop so I can get there, what do I want to gain so I can get there. But I don't wait until the new year to do it. So for me, that's the big thing. I suppose we're going to talk about it a bit more because I know a couple of I know you, Una, and I think you, Stephen, as well, starting to do it quarterly as well. So as well as once a year, looking at what you're doing and reflecting on where you've been. I do it quarterly with my clients and with myself, and I find that helps. And I suppose one more thing before kind of moving on from me, when I've done that in the last few years, I've noticed that significant change within my business has been in March and September. So that's really random. When I've sat and reflected and gone, right, okay, what pinnacle things have happened or what successes have come from what I've been putting out there over the past few years, I've noticed a trend that in March I'll notice something and in September I will. And I think that is because I'm continuously kind of regularly reviewing, reflecting, setting goals. So I thought that would be interesting. So if I didn't do it quarterly, I don't think I would see that. I don't think I would see them changes within them months. So I was curious whether you guys kind of notice a change as well in how you do it and from your successes and your goals and things.
Interesting. Great. Well, yes, I relate a lot to what you say there, as you won't be surprised by. Stephen, what's your perspective? Do you tend to set New Year's resolutions?
First of all, there's nothing like a bit of controversy first thing on a Tuesday morning, Jess. That's what we like to hear. My first thought was, I'm a bit like you. There's no point waiting till the end of the year to start making, new goals for the following year. I'm quite impulsive. If there's things I want to implement, I'll implement them there and then. And I've got more chance of making them happen rather than waiting to a new year to start them all off. But I've always tried to set previously resolutions, and they've failed miserably, either because they're too big or you just I can't get motivated enough. So with the help of a certain person in front of me, I'm hoping that moving forwards, I'm going to be a bit more strategic in my goal setting and make them more achievable. I had a resolution. I wanted to streamline a few processes, and I tried to implement them ready for the new year, which I did. Until I had a bit of a meltdown yesterday, which and Becky helped me with. But I think it's about making them small enough to achieve, but big enough that they're going to help you grow and move forward. So that's my take on resolution. So a bit of both, without the controversy.
Well, it's really interesting because I think what happens for a lot of people is that over the holiday period, so they have Christmas or whatever they celebrate, New Year's, and this is whole kind of New Year, New You kind of feeling, and all the articles and everything that comes out around this time. And so I think people feel a lot of pressure to make change at this time of year that they maybe don't feel at other times of year, right? And the reason why most New Year's resolutions fail is that people they set a decision, but they haven't necessarily thought it through, number one. So they haven't really got, like, what's the motivation behind the change they want to make? Have they really got clear on the vision of what it is that they want to achieve, and more importantly, who they want to become? So you've got, and it's interesting, actually, I'm just reading James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, at the moment. And I'm a big fan of his newsletter. I highly suggest you subscribe to it. Just really, is kind of, a higher level of thinking, and some great quotes and things like that as well. But he talks about habits, obviously, and this is the thing, is that in order to make changes, we have to change our habits. And this is one of the key things in the way I work with my clients. So I have my impact-driven growth model. And at the very center of that impact-driven growth model is a little head, because it's all about people. It's about our habits, our personal productivity, our leadership, our identity and mindset. And those are the things that actually really influence whether the changes we want to happen or not. Now, there's lots of things we can do to help with that, like putting the right structures in place. So, for instance, if you want to not be eating biscuits, not having biscuits in the house is a really great way of doing that. Like, that's one system that you can do of just removing temptation. If you want to be exercising more, take your exercise clothes and put them at the bottom of your bed, so that the minute you get up, you're always going to trip over them. Don't trip over them, obviously. That they're there right for you. And it's just as easy to put on your exercise clothes as it is to do something else. So it's a combination of our mindset and identity and the things that we do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or whatever kind of time frame that we create. And it's those plans. It's like I always say to people, you can have a business plan, but if your business plan doesn't show up in your calendar and in your task management system, then it's not going to get done. It's just like kind of empty promises. And I think often that's what New Year's resolutions feels like to me. They're like empty promises to yourself that you then break and then feel bad for people who don't keep them up. And I think if you look at the people who do make and keep New Year's resolutions, they will have a plan. They'll have a plan of action behind it. They'll have a desire, like a real want, a hunger for that change, because it's hard to change habits, isn't it?
I've got a question for you, Una. Do you
Sure.
think it's a lot easier to maintain or keep a resolution if you've got an accountability partner?
For most people, yes. So this is where looking at the type of person that you are makes a big difference. For most people, they will need to having that accountability makes a big difference. Don't panic, folks. Jess has just gone to get a charger. She's not disappeared. So the thing is that I'm the kind of person, and you're the kind of person, and Jess is the kind of person. We all really benefit from having accountability.
Yes.
It's just the way that we're wired. Though it's interesting that even though that's the way that I'm wired, the more that I have created structure in my life, and the more that I have shifted my mindset and my identity to be the kind of person that does do or doesn't do the kind of things that will lead to me achieving the goals that I set, the less accountability that I've needed, I still benefit from it. Like, this is one of the reasons why I do FocusMate sessions. So, you know, the video co-working sessions. If anyone wants to check that out, go to focusmate.com. Jess, would you be so kind as to pop that into the comments for me? So that's kind of in the moment accountability. But what it isn't is, it's not the kind of, okay, I've set these goals and I've created this plan. Now how do I make sure that that is actually implemented? So I have structures for that. So I have a weekly meeting with my team where we're looking at what each of us has committed to do and how are we getting on with it. And then, you know, like, really, business meetings ought to be about unpicking, identifying, defining, and kind of solving the issues that there is in a business. And this is why most business meetings are really boring, because they don't do that. They often rehash old ground. They don't get to the heart of an issue. People are afraid to speak up, or just too bored or not engaged enough to actually speak up. So, like, in a lot of, particularly a lot of bigger businesses where, you know, bureaucracy really gets in the way and people feel powerless to kind of make any change, you get a lot of that happening. So, but the point there is really about having that regular reviewing, which comes back to Jessica's point about, you know, when you have like 90-day plans or quarterly plans, then, you know, you've got 4 times a year that you're sitting down and really working on your business. And of course, the best way to start that is, what happened? You know, what did you achieve? What didn't you achieve? What worked? What didn't work? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? And so, and as clients turn up to quarterly planning meetings, then, you know, the more they've done, the more they show up, they're prepared, and I'm not having even to ask those questions. I just say, so, you know, how did it go? They go, okay, well, this worked, this didn't, blah, blah. And, you know, they get into the routine of doing that. So, and I mean, you want to be doing that at various levels in your business on a kind of at least a weekly and monthly basis. But I think that quarterly, there's just something about human nature that I think we find it hard to see beyond 90 days. Like, people get to week 10, 11, and they just seem to lose sight of their goals. So it has to be reminded. Like, it happens a lot with my clients, and I kind of go, so what's happened with this? Oh, yeah. And they kind of go, I forgot about that. Even though they were so enthusiastic and so passionate about it. And it's not because they've lost that, they just lost sight of it. So we need to have ways of keeping sight of it. Like I always say to people, you know, put up, I kind of have people that have creating a weekly breakdown is the kind of last step in the process. And actually to have that weekly breakdown where they can see it. So if they use a paper diary, put it in, you know, put it in there. If they have like a wall that they can put it on, you know, put it up on that wall by their computer, or just somehow have it so they're seeing it and they're connected to, you know, what it is they're looking to achieve. But yeah, it's very interesting. But there's 2 authors I would highly recommend kind of around this. So one is James Clear in the Atomic Habits book, and the other one is by Gretchen Rubin, and she wrote a book called Happiness, which I'm going to try and look up the book, which I haven't read that book, but I read the book that came after it. So, but what she discovered, she kind of went in the pursuit of happiness. I'm just looking it up right now in my Kindle. Oh, I want to correction, right? Wrong. Yes, it's with an E. Oh, I was searching within Atomic Habits. That's why I'm not finding it. But interestingly enough, he has mentioned her. So there we go. Better Than Before. That's it. So in Better Than Before, that's the book she wrote after Happiness, because she researched with a load of people who were happy and who weren't happy and what made people happy. And she discovered it wasn't things, it was habits. So when people had habits that led to what they wanted, then they were happy. And so she wrote a book called Better Than Before, all about habits and just about how to keep improving things. But one of the things I want to say as well, which I think is really, really important, is that if you look at bamboo, it grows for months and months and months. And then all of a sudden, within like a week or 10 days or something, it shoots up, like huge, absolutely huge. And that is what often happens. That's what often happens with us when we make a change. So we start an activity, we look to build a habit or to stop a habit, and we don't see the results straight away. And it's so easy to get disheartened. I mean, have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're talking about mindset around it as well, because that's I get huge blindset blocks when I try and change my habits, try and change, little things that I'm doing and for the better. But I do get a lot of mindset blocks. And without that regular review, that's why I demotivate myself and not stick to things. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. And so we have to, if we know going in, it's going to take ages for the results to show up. I have to keep doing this or keep not doing this in order to get the result. But I think people, they set a New Year's resolution or they set a goal or they make a plan and they don't give themselves enough time to get the results. But, we're like that bamboo. It takes time. And I think it's really interesting what you said, Jess, about noticing changes in March and September. I wonder if that's because it's taking 6 months, 9 months for things to actually come to fruition. And people always feel like a great example in Atomic Habits, actually, he talks about ice. So if you have a piece of ice in front of you and you increase the temperature by 1 degree, so, you start at 25 degrees and you go up one, you go up one, you go up one, you go up one, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You go up another one, you go up another one, all of a sudden, boom, the ice starts to melt. But actually, it's not that you had to get to that one. Things were happening as the temperature was increasing, but you don't see the result of it until you get to a certain level and boom, things change and it starts to melt. Well, it's the same with us. It's the accumulation, it's actually the compound effect of the changes that I think is really important. And actually, that's one of the reasons why. So in the 5 steps video of how I can achieve 50K in 50 minutes for people, of helping them to find, extra revenue and profits in their business, it's how the 5 things work together. It's the power of compounding. And so, us achieving our goals is the compound effect of, various habits that we do over time. There is, I say to people all the time, there is no one silver bullet. It's actually how everything works together. It's the synergy of that. And we need to be careful. Like sometimes what people do is they might create, they might start doing one thing, but they're still doing something else that they're effectively, oh, I'm putting one foot on the accelerator, but I'm putting the other foot on the brake. So, and then they kind of have this stop start kind of thing. So you got to look at things as a whole, take a holistic view, look at it as a system. So Stephen, you're stroking your beard there. What are you thinking about all this?
I think you're absolutely right. There are times when I've given up on a resolution way too easily, because it's either it's not been achievable, or I've not seen any results almost instantaneously. And I'm quite, like I said at the very beginning, I'm quite impulsive. I want things to happen right away. But you're absolutely right. You know, things are bubbling away in the background. And it's not until you get to that certain level where it all starts to fall into place. So I think also is it's an idea to have kind of like a mini checklist or a benchmark every so often, to make sure that you're still on track to achieving that resolution. That all might also help, because sometimes if you're not seeing any changes or noticing any differences, you start to feel demotivated, don't you? I know I certainly have them in the past. Whether it's not so much in business, but personal goals. And like I swim a lot. If I don't improve my time every time I go, I get a bit demotivated, and I'll do something else, and I'll come back to it and I'll try again. So there are little things that you can do to keep you on track, if that's the way you like to operate.
And yeah, you bring up a really important point there. And I think one of the distinctions I'd like to make is, well, it's really this thing about tracking. So if you understand the difference between a lag measure and, and a lead measure. So I know there's two words for this. So it's lagging indicators and leading indicators. So a leading indicator would be looking at what's the numbers in your business. So what are your sales? What are your profits? Those kinds of things. But the lag indicators are the things that there's a time lag between when you do it and when you actually see the result. So that's where the name comes from. And so that might be, well, in your instance, how many calls have I made? How many conversations have I had? And that can be with all of us. It can be conversations over social media. How many presentations have you done? How many events have you attended, or networked at, or exhibited at, or how many emails did you send? How many posts did you do? So these are the lag indicators that will actually predict to some extent the results that we actually get. And so if we track those as well, obviously we have to keep an eye on the numbers. I'm not saying not to do that. However, what we can do is we can pick 1, 2, 3, not too many, but just 1 or 2 or 3 key performance indicators that will tell us how we're actually doing. And when we do that, that makes a big difference. So like I have a kind of sales activity tracker for my service-based clients, where they can track, well, how many conversations have they had, how many presentations, etc. And just doing that keeps them focused, because they're filling that in, and they're getting to see, like, the more they do, they get to see. And also when you do that, you can understand those indicators better. Well, how many conversations does it take? What activity needs to happen in order to have those conversations? How can you make incremental improvements? And it's like with I think, I can't remember his name, but the chap who helped Britain to win the Tour de France, and it was all about the incremental improvements, tiny little things. Like, can you imagine, they painted the inside of the bike trucks white so that dust could be more easily seen, so that it wouldn't affect the performance of the bikes. Like, that's the kind of minutia that was paid attention to in order to get just these slight incremental improvements. But that led to the team winning, I think, 4 or 5. I think it was 5 Tour de France, where they hadn't won it in over 100 years. So yeah, it's this thing, isn't it, about the long term, but putting in place, like, what can we do that, you can get a feeling of satisfaction. And I think this is where is an important part of creating new habits, is having a feeling of satisfaction. So rather than getting satisfaction from that quick fix, whatever that might be for you, instead you kind of go, oh, I get to tick this, right? I did it. And there's all sorts of apps that you can use, or you can just have a simple tracker up on the wall or a door, somewhere that you're going to see it, and be able to kind of tick that thing off. So yeah, so I think that tracking aspect of it is really important as well. So There's one other thing that I want to talk about as well, actually, which is what I do like to do is I do like to have a theme for the year, and that's very much around who I'm becoming. And so one of the things for me, so I'm a creative person, I'm a creative extrovert, and I'm fantastic at starting things. Naturally, I'm not always so great at finishing things. Maybe you can relate. So if you can relate, put it in the comments for sure. And the a lot of my clients are the same as well. And I've put a lot in place, and I've trained myself to be more focused. I've trained myself not to kind of over plan and things like that. And it makes a big difference. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I've just seen, actually, we got a comment here. I don't set New Year's resolutions. I work on evolution to work on my goals. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and interesting, actually, Ian's just said here, I have a goal for the year, usually very simple. If it's complicated, I lose interest. If it's simple, like me, I can much more easily focus. Yes, yeah, I get it. And it's interesting because what I'm just about to talk about is having a word or a theme for the year. And so I created mine of finishing, and part of it was actually because, so this dress I'm wearing now, this is how it came about. So I took the week off before Christmas, and we were actually doing some revamping, and I did wallpapering. Me and my husband, look, we did wallpapering. So this is my office, and it's also my sewing space. So those of you who know me know I like to make my own clothes, and vintage style clothes. And so, interesting enough, this dress, it was kind of January, February 2019 when I had a whole change of image, and actually when I then started thinking about and ended up, taking my first sewing lesson. And yeah, because I couldn't find what I wanted, so I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just have to make it. So I'll give it a go. And knowing what I'm like, I didn't even buy a machine. So it was like May, June time before I got my first sewing machine. I only sewed when I was in my lessons up until that point, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a fad. I wanted to make sure it was something I was going to stick with. So anyway, I bought this dress, which was sleeveless, and just the proportions of it. This is one of the things I've learned from sewing, is my proportions don't fit ready to wear clothes very easily. So it explained a whole load of things to me about why I always never felt great in a lot of ready to wear clothes. And so now I can make things fit. I have an extremely long torso, so waistlines were never in the right place for me. So this was one of those things, and that was one of my first ideas, was like, oh, maybe I could get a dressmaker to take the bodice away from the skirt and to put in a midriff. And I was at that time I was thinking, okay, this quite a lot of fabric in the skirt is gathered. It's a kind of swing style skirt. They could make the skirt narrower, take some fabric from that, put it in the midriff, maybe even put some sleeves on, and that would be great. Anyway, this is sat in my UFO cupboard, which in sewing terms means unfinished object. and I have my UFO cupboard. It's like, yes, I have to have a cupboard for UFO things because there's too many of them. And but in revamping my whole space and getting out all this old stuff, and that, it was just really interesting. I was just like, oh my God, there's this stuff here that I haven't finished. And so over Christmas, I did this. So I did this. I did another one where I turned a dress into a skirt. And I now have these two garments that I can wear and I can enjoy. But it just got me thinking about finishing, and about I want to be the kind of person who, when they set out to do something, they finish it. And I'm not saying it's going to be 100%, because there may be legitimate reasons why I choose not to finish something. So there is one top that I started making, and it wasn't the right fabric for that particular project. So I'm not going to finish that because it doesn't make sense to. However, it made sense to finish this, so I've done it. And I started it. I didn't wait until the 1st of January. I started straight away. And I think that's the thing. If we come up with something that we want to change, let's not wait until the New Year's. Let's do it straight away. But yeah, so finishing is my theme for the year. So I'm just curious, if you were to have a theme or a word for the year, what would yours be?
Well, if you don't mind, Stephen, I'll go first, because I've been thinking about this as well a lot. And for me, the one word that I would use is joy, right? And I think I'm going to put it on my walls. And not that I don't have any joy in my life or anything like that, but I've noticed, well, the past couple of years has been challenging. It's been, you're thrown on one pillar to another, aren't we? There's a lot of change been going on. And I found that I've not been motivated. I've not stayed motivated. And when I have this conversation with a lot of people, we tend up talking about how do we stay motivated with it. And when I've reflected back on that, I've thought of bringing more joy and more energy into my days. So instead of waking up going, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that because it's in my action plan, it's in my goals, somehow within the day, make a space or a time where I'm laughing or smiling. So we've spoke about it before, haven't we, Stephen, when you're doing sales calls, just smiling. Just smiling brings your energy up. It gets other people, it brings their energy up. So even if I have a moment in the day where I'm smiling, so whether I play with Paddy, my dog, whether I just have a bit of playtime with him and watch him just being silly, or whether I started doing a bit of dancing in the mornings just to get my spirits and energy up. There was something else I thought, even just watching, I'm a huge Friends fan, and I love New Girl and things like that. So like a 20-minute episode, I can sit during my lunch and watch and laugh and smile, and then I can go on doing my other things. So for me, that word, joy, and I do a lot of mindset unblocking, and the one that I've just done, I don't mind sharing with you now. Like I literally did it last night. It was about taking things too seriously, and how fitting is that with just finding that little bit more joy. And instead of taking things too serious, just being lighthearted and finding the fun, finding the energy again to do it. So that's my theme of the year, and I'm actually really excited to be doing it.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. What about you, Stephen?
So I've got two that I think would greatly benefit me in the business. One is being organized or more organized, and the other one is being disciplined. I tend to, go off track a little bit. I go down many rabbit holes when I'm doing stuff for clients, and it just detracts from my core activities on a daily basis. So I need to be a lot more disciplined and organized in what I'm doing. And and if I'm setting myself for the day, setting my tasks for the day, sticking to them, because I just, I'm shiny object,
Squirrel.
Sorry,
squirrel.
Yeah, squirrel. Yeah. I'll come back. I'll pull it back, but it's just where's the time gone? So there's a couple of things. I mean, I like Jess. I talk about smiling, and I'm a big believer in that. It really does set the tone for the conversation for your clients. It's really important to smile when you're on the telephone. But I sometimes get a bit carried away and just go off track a lot. So got to pull it back in, tighten the reins, and discipline. So big one for me, discipline. Then organize.
I was going to say, I think discipline is the word, because if you're more disciplined, you will be more organized.
Yeah.
But you can be organized without necessarily being disciplined.
Yeah.
Whereas and here's the interesting thing is that the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. It's amazing how often things, a theme will show up for people of kind of, oh wow, I didn't realize, I knew that it was like this here in my business, or I knew it was like this in my relationship, or I knew it was like this in my health. But actually when they look, they realize the underlying themes are there. So yes, discipline is it's a really important one, and it's so interesting, isn't it? The two different words that you've both chosen. So one is joy and the other is discipline, and they may seem to be at the opposite ends of the spectrum. The interesting thing is, though, the more disciplined and organized and structured that you are, well, to an extent, right? The more that you are, the more freedom it brings you. When you set up systems in your business, it leaves you free to do things that are more fun. When you have that bit of discipline in, I don't know, your eating and exercise, then you have more energy to do more fun things. Like it's really interesting when you look at these things. I think a lot of people look, in being a creative person and working with a lot of creative people, they feel that discipline and structure and habits are like, oh God, they're boring. I don't want to be boring. I want to do everything randomly and everything ad hoc and everything just when I feel like it. And yet actually putting these things in place allows us to do that. In the longer term, we just need to we kind of need to learn a little bit of patience. I think patience is not something that comes naturally to us creative types, is it? It's often much more natural to be impulsive, to be impatient, to kind of have an idea and feel like I want it done yesterday, or even just have an idea and feel like it's already happened without you needing to do anything. That can happen too. So yeah, fantastic. So I think we'll wrap it up there. So clearly it's a resounding nay for New Year's resolutions and a resounding yay for habits and plans and kind of tracking and putting things in place that are going to really support you. And I think like Stephen was saying about have the people around you who are going to help you with that. So, whether that's an accountability partner in your life or your business, whether that's somebody that you kind of, work with, whether it's somebody that you hire, whatever we do, that definitely can be a big help for people as well. Any last thoughts, Jess?
For me, I suppose it's probably just making sure to keep checking in with that long-term impact. That big picture impact. I'm very big picture focused, so I'm always thinking about that. But even I can sometimes lose sight of it in the day-to-day tasks and and being busy. How we all like to be busy and things like that, and losing sight of that long-term goals. So yeah, just really checking in with that impact. Why is it that we want to make these changes? Why is it that we want to make these habits? And keep looking into that and bringing ourselves back to what we want, not what everyone else is doing. Because that's another thing, that the reason I don't like New Year resolutions, because I feel like you're always looking outwards on what other people are doing, what other people are saying, what are their resolutions. And it's the same for business with my clients. They're looking at the competition all the time. What are they charging? What are they marketing? And we really just need to come back to ourselves and check in with what we want and what makes us happy. So yeah, I'd just like to end on that. And something that I'm reading to help me more with that, it's called The Long Game. I don't know if anyone's heard that book. So far so good. So if you want to kind of, if you're relating to what I'm saying, then let me know, or I'll put it in the comments after this chat. But yeah, just keeping tied into that impact and that personal kind of impact.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Stephen? Final thoughts?
I got to practice what I preach, I think, and take on board, other people's comments. And for me, really, it is just to be disciplined. I find it very easy to go off track. I've just got to focus, and not set myself up for failure with any big resolutions. Keep your goals small and manageable. And it's and again, like Jess said, and like I said at the very beginning, have somebody that you can talk to about it. Have an accountability partner. I mean, whether it's the group that we have on a weekly basis, or your partner, in life, just talk to people. Make things achievable.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I would say about accountability partners is it doesn't tend to work very well with someone that you're close to. So I would always suggest, whether it's a coach specializing in that area, or whether it could be somebody that you know but don't really know very well. But I've done it several times in the past where I've tried to have accountability partners with friends, and my husband, it never worked, because it tends to disappear, or it kind of just evolves into chatting. And often people close to you find it hard to actually hold you accountable. So there's something about that, about a little bit of distance that actually I think can help in that situation. But yeah, I mean, some people can make it work, so give it a go. But yeah, just something else to bear in mind as well. What would be your theme for the year? Put it in the comments. We want to know. And what are you have you set a New Year's resolution? Put that in the comments. Have you got a plan behind it? Would you like help with that? anything, please feel free to reach out to the three of us, or one of the three of us, depending on what help you're looking with. We're here to help. And if you have an idea for a topic that you would like us to cover, or a particular question you would like us to answer, please feel free to pop that in the comments as well. We'd be happy to do that. All right, we're going to wrap it up, crack on with the day. Have a fantastic day and week. We will be here at the same time next week. See you then. Bye for now.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.